It began on a set of rock canyons called the Hammers, where the quest to become king of these trails evolves into America's toughest off-road race. Drivers dedicating every waking hour to improving one of mankind's greatest inventions, forging new ways to solve old problems. A shift in thinking sparked an industry change, the ignition of a whole new sport. Test it until it fails. Break it to make it stronger, faster, more capable. When the dust settles, only the strongest emerge to be crowned king of the Hammers. This time on World of X Games, the Can-Am UTV King of the Hammers, and the 4-wheel parts Everyman Challenge. The Mojave Desert. Once a year, California's 96,000-acre Johnson Valley OHV area transforms from a desert into a sea of off-road enthusiasts. For 1 week, tens of thousands gather to experience America's toughest off-road race. Since its birth in 2007, the King of the Hammers has grown from a single race with just 12 competitors to 4 main events featuring 350 drivers, catering to every tier of off-road culture. In just a few days, a city emerges from the dust. Its epicenter, a starting line. With the Hammer Trails as the main artery, an ever-present pulse emerges from Hammertown. The first class to take on the rocky desert landscape is the UTV class. What started as a niche part of the event back in 2009, the UTVs have exploded into the largest class with some of the biggest names in off-road racing.
You know, in all the years of off-road racing, I've raced everything from a 5/1600 car to a 1600 car to a 7S truck, a 7 open truck. And in 2015, the first time I drove a UTV and saw that I can go 65, 70 miles an hour through whoops that I couldn't do in all these vehicles. I spent a ton of money building race cars and how fast these things can actually go. I went, there's a lot more to this. And this is a stock one.
Dan Fresh, winner of the 2018 King of the Hammers Everyman Challenge, is just one example.
So in late 2015, we built a race one and started racing the Baja 1000. And in 2017, we were fortunate enough to win the Baja 1000 with a UTV. So I believe there's so much left in these vehicles, and we haven't even pushed the envelope yet in Hammers with our race team. So I'm excited to see what we can do with it. No matter what vehicle I'm racing, I'm going to use a UTV. If I'm not racing it, I'm going to go pre-run in a UTV. There's no better way to get out and put in miles, is what we call it. So we go down to pre-run the Baja 1000. If we use one of our pre-runners, we have a lot more problems. We can't cover as much ground. And if we just pack a cooler, me and a buddy jump in and we can do 300 miles day after day after day with a UTV where we never could before, even using one of the nice buggies and things like that. It always seems like we'd be working all night to get it ready for the next day. The UTV, you just gas it back up and away you go.
Nick Nelson, who primarily races the 4400 Unlimited class, also sees the UTV's potential.
The start of it for me was that. It's like we build these cars that we drive 6 times a year and work on 12 billion hours a year. But we don't get to drive them in between. And everybody's like, you know, people that don't understand racing, they're like, so what do you do for practice? You go out every weekend and drive your race car? And you're like, no, I drive my race car in qualifying and during the race and sometimes a little pre-run lap or something. And so aside from that, we don't get to drive them. So for the UTV's attractive in that way that I could use it as a pre-runner. I can use it as a race car. I can use it as just a fun haver and just go out and you take your girl and your friends and go cruise and go to the dunes one weekend, go rock crawling one weekend, and just go jam down some trails on another. And the common denominator is that's the same. It's one machine that can do everything, and that's kind of they've taken that from Ultra 4 and become more affordable. Something that every day you can go, get a loan and sign on the dotted line and leave with a UTV and go riding this weekend. Where to buy an Ultra 4 car, you're in the these $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 range to build a top of the line race car right now.
UTVs offer more than just affordability. They're fully capable machines requiring little maintenance. For drivers of all classes looking to spend more time racing than wrenching, it's an opportunity to get an extra glimpse of the course before race day. When the qualifying flag waves, more than 100 UTVs will race for a starting position in the 160-mile Can-Am UTV King of the Hammers. Welcome to the Can-Am UTV King of the Hammers, presented by HCR. In the evolution of Hammers races, the competition in the UTV class has come a long way. An important part of that evolution is reigning king Mitch Guthrie Jr.
This UTV class at first was more of like for fun, and it was a stepping stone, and it was more of people coming out here for a good time. And now it's serious. You have Polaris, you have Can-Am, you have Yamaha, you have every brand out here putting as much support as they can into all their racers, and that's kind of how it shows.
One of those racers is UTV world champion and Can-Am factory driver, Dustin Jones. While he's an experienced short course desert racer, it's his rookie debut at King of the Hammers.
So we come from back in Louisiana. We grew up mud racing and doing all of that stuff, transitioned into UTVs in cross-country racing, and then Can-Am noticed and picked us up for Best in the Desert. So we've won the Mint 400, we won the UTV World Championships, a couple of other big races out in Best in the Desert, and King of the Hammers is just one of those things, man. It's that thing that kind of tugs on you as a racer. It's got so much notoriety and so much prestige, you want to be a part of it.
Most competitors rely on stock or lightly modified UTVs. But Jones will be racing a custom vehicle built from the ground up.
So we saw what everybody else was doing. We knew that we could go out there with a mostly stock car and compete in this race and probably finish. But that's just not S3 style, man. That's as much research as we could. We checked out what the buggy guys were doing, and we tried to bring that build from like buggies, big tires, both sides. We tried to build that into our X3.
Dustin and his team aren't just trying to create a one-of-a-kind build. They're after the speed needed for a 90-mile desert loop and the durability to get them through a 70-mile rock loop. Outside of designated pit areas, racers will have no support.
The biggest thing that you hear about King of the Hammers is how high the attrition rate is at the race and how hard the event is on equipment.
Even today's bone stock UTVs are virtually unrecognizable compared to a few short years ago. These new improvements have not gone unnoticed by race owner Dave Cole.
One thing I always kind of laugh at, and Dave Cole still laughs at in all the drivers' meetings, is back in the day when UTVs first started racing here, he was calling them golf carts, and a lot of people were calling them that. And now every year at the drivers' meetings, he's like, all right, these things aren't golf carts anymore. And it shows. I mean, you have every big brand out here supporting their racers, and there's teams that are putting in so many hours, so much work, so much money to win this one race, and it's one race out of the year. So it goes to show how big the UTVs are getting, and how big of a, I don't even know how to put it, it's just a huge class. There's a lot of money behind it now, and yep.
As capabilities have improved, the course has become even tougher. Last year, out of 115 entrants, only 12 finished the race.
Like I always say, if Dave Cole had it his way, he would make sure no cars finish this race, and that's what makes King of the Hammers King of the Hammers. And you hear people complain sometimes. They think more people should finish. everyone puts in so much time, but that's this race. That's what it's all about, and that's what it's been from the beginning is, you know, it's the toughest race out there.
Defending champion Guthrie Jr. will have to battle a stacked field and a punishing course to retain his title. One by one, qualifiers leave the line to determine their starting order in the race. On the line, Dustin's fully custom UTV turns a few heads.
And then I hear a pop. And I immediately knew whenever I heard the noise what had happened, and the 35s had broke the front differential.
Jones has a decent run, but his team will have to scramble to get his UTV ready for the main. Guthrie Jr. closes the book on qualifying by laying down the fastest time and winning the pole position.
Yeah, this is my third year doing King of the Hammers driving. The first year, qualified first actually, but had an issue with the car like 30 miles in, so learned from that. And then last year, took home the win and finally had a little bit more experience in the rocks and everything. This place is crazy. So, and then now 3 years in, I'm feeling pretty comfortable out here and ready to throw it down tomorrow.
The experienced California King, a Louisiana newcomer, both with the skills to win and the pressure to perform. This episode of World of X Games is brought to you by Can-Am, HCR, 4-Wheel Parts, and Monster Energy. It's race day at the Can-Am UTV King of the Hammers, presented by HCR.
Yeah, we're out here at the 2019 King of Hammers. We got a bunch of rain yesterday. I think it's going to keep the dust down. It may not be, you know, such an advantage being out front now, but I think we're going to break the track in good. You know, we've got 160 miles of some of the roughest stuff, you know, in the United States, so I think we're ready for it.
Like all Hammer events, the UTV race is run on corrected time. This means that first place qualifier Mitch Guthrie Jr. will have to finish in physical first in order to win.
Yeah, no dust, so hopefully we can just get out front and get away from everyone.
Mitch Guthrie Jr., yesterday's obviously fast qualifier, and to this point still reigning King of the Hammers in the UTV division. Kyle Cheney alongside of him, kind of a dark horse. He kind of, I don't want to say he came out of nowhere yesterday, but boy, he laid down a fast lap way early in the qualifying session.
Kyle Cheney's pace off the line makes it clear that the reigning king will have to defend his title.
That's going to be a battle all day long. Next up on the line, we got Bailey Cole, driving one of Robbie Gordon's cars. Now we've got Bailey and Waylon Campbell side by side off the start line. They finished yesterday with 1/100th of a second time difference on the qualifying course.
Most vehicles won't survive the 160-mile race.
Yeah, the desert out there is gnarly, and it kind of separates the cars, you know, who has a car that can make it through that first off, and then, you know, who has the talent to get through there quick and make it first to the rocks.
The challenge is finding a balance between speed and endurance. Pushing your limits is required in this sport, but pushing too hard will end your race.
Sometimes the line works.
Look at this, I think he may have created it on his own. He may overtake the top or lead car in this pack. How about that? Whoa, look out! We're finally underway. Every car, all 114 are out on the race course.
Kyle Cheney's pace has proven to be unsustainable. Phil Blurton takes first place and leads Guthrie Jr. through Cougar Buttes.
Yeah, so he's physically first on course. He was the first one coming into Cougar's Butte. So right now...
pushing the Can-Am pretty hard.
Yeah.
Remember, these guys left in 30-second increments, so it's technically they're racing themselves on corrected time today. I think the course is open for 8 hours of racing, so it's going to be a long day for these guys.
The two enter a remote pit at the same time but a quick turnaround puts Guthrie in the lead. Meanwhile, at mile 13, Dustin Jones' vehicle has gone from 90 miles per hour into limp mode, a computer-activated safety mechanism.
Oh man, what in the world? No temp surge doing anything. Check engine, belt temps up, but
it creates so much stress for me when we get into one of those situations when you're not 100% sure on what's going on and you're just letting competitor after competitor by.
I radioed to the pits and let them know we were in limp mode and that we were limping 37 miles an hour.
Look, is anybody coming up? I'm watching.
What on earth could have went wrong already?
While the cause is unknown, pulling into remote pit 1, the team discovers missing pieces from the drive belt.
It's got a long race. So
take this tire off.
A quick replacement, and the car is once again operating at 100%.
That's the stuff that pushes us to do better, is knowing that you're going to have some struggles, knowing that there's going to be those big risks, and battling through that. And part of the fun for us is overcoming those battles.
The reigning king has a similar issue.
Mitch Guthrie Jr.'s are in the pits. Our current king is out front. Hey, Mitchell, you're in the lead.
As racers complete the first lap in the open desert, they pass through the main pits in Hammertown before starting the notorious rock section of the course. Now it's time to test their tenacity.
Yeah, the desert out there is gnarly, and it kind of separates the cars, you know, who has a car that can make it through that first off, and then, you know, who has the talent to get through there quick and make it first to the rocks.
With outside help only allowed in designated pit areas, Phil Blurton is limping his vehicle with a broken differential to a nearby pit.
give me the axle bolt.
The desert's one thing, and the driver can kind of figure that out on their own, but when you get to the rocks, you need someone that can, you know, look out the side, know the lines, and if you have to get out of the car, they need to be able to either stack rocks, guide you up the course, or a lot of times you're winching. So winching is a huge part of it, and experience is huge out here. You gotta have experience. You can't just come out here and win this thing. You gotta put in work, have a co-driver that knows what they're doing, and kind of have the whole package if you really wanna do this thing right.
With two wheels in the air and perfect control, Waylon Campbell crawls his way out of Clawhammer. Shannon Campbell goes full throttle, but can't get up. When he backs up for another try, he flips the UTV. When he can't get it right on his own, another competitor steps in to help.
You never know where rocks might move or this or that, you know, right before the race, so you kind of are figuring out as you go out there.
Coming from Louisiana, we don't have many rocks out there. It's all swamps and mud. And so we had to get on YouTube and watch videos of King of the Hammers. We got zero pre-running, didn't run an inch of this course, and had to show up and race it. So we did as much research as we could, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it did not set you up for what King of the Hammers racing was. That's the most brutal, the roughest off-road race I've ever been a part of.
In Outer Limits, Dustin Jones runs into a similar issue.
Baby, hard left right through here, hard left. Front diff is gone. It's broke in half, the diff is.
Back in the remote pit, he decides that the repair will take too long and sets out to finish in two-wheel drive.
Spooners is the last big obstacle of the King of the Hammers race. And what's tough is when you get spooners, your car is beat up. It's been abused for another 150 miles. Like, this thing has been put through the paces. And now coming back into Hammertown, you can see it. You can almost taste the finish line, but you got to make it down spooners, and it beats the car to death.
Meanwhile, Guthrie is widening his lead. It's back-to-back wins for Mitch Guthrie Jr. To be at the top is a feeling that few get to experience, enough to keep teams and drivers coming back.
Sure, after King of the Hammers, you feel like you're on top of the world for sure, especially getting the win and going back-to-back now. It doesn't feel real, and I'm just really thankful. You know, it's a family thing. There's friends and family. There's so many people that make this happen for me, and it's not just me. So, you know, doing it for sponsors, friends, family, everyone that spends all their time out here, that's what makes it really special.
Father and son take third and second. Waylon Campbell has narrowly beaten his father, Shannon. On stage, Shannon can't help but give Waylon's car a bump.
I ain't never raced nothing like that in my life. King of the Hammers ain't no joke. But our first year racing, and we brought it into the finish. That was our goal. I don't know where we finished. We had some problems early on, but we got to the end of King of the Hammers, buddy. Are we? I'll settle for a top 10 on our first try at King of the Hammers, I'll be honest with you.
Only 27 finished. Though there can only be one king, Ultra 4 and the King of the Hammers is filled with winners, those who have achieved their goals. After the break, the four-wheel parts Everyman Challenge. The King of the Hammers, a grassroots race that's exploded into an off-roading phenomenon. But through all its changes, Ultra 4 Racing has not forgotten its humble beginnings. Two-time King Eric Miller first qualified for the Unlimited class back in 2009, driving a mostly stock Jeep. Pulling that off now would be out of the question.
The entry into Ultra 4 was much easier than it is today. Now, to be competitive, you can't come out here and try to run the 4400 class in a YJ on leaf springs. It just doesn't work. The cost of entry is not cheap, and the ability to actually get into the race is difficult because you need a crew. It's not rock crawling. You can't come out with your co-driver or spotter and it be a two-man show. Over the years, they kind of solved this cost of entry becoming higher and higher for the 4400 class. And out of that spawned the 4500 class, the 4600 class, 4800 class Legends. So the idea and the roots of Ultra 4 haven't been lost. And I think that the door's been open for people to still have that ease of entry, work their way up through the classes. I mean, heck, it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter who you are, you can start at the bottom and get in. It's a little more difficult today.
Jesse Coombs is a fast-evolving driver who in 2018 won the 4600 Modified Stock Class. Despite the limitations imposed on her vehicle against far more capable classes, she managed to finish the EMC race in an impressive third place overall.
There's so many rules in this class. You can only do so much to your car. You can't even cut into the inner fender wells. You can't do anything. So it's a very much a driver's class.
It's the paradox of the Everyman Challenge. Imposing limitations enables more people to compete.
The coolest part about this Jeep is that I drove it here. It's street legal, it's registered, it's insured, it's all of that stuff. And so the best part about this class is it's using products, it's using parts that you can buy directly off of the shelf. Well, this class fits in the Everyman Challenge. They want every man to be able to come to King of the Hammers, and they want him to compete. And this is a perfect class for entry-level drivers that may or may not have a lot of money, that may or may not want to just try it and see if King of the Hammers is for them. And it's affordable. I mean, this car, price comparison to a 4400 car is massively different.
The Everyman Challenge is the largest race at Hammers, with a broad spectrum of vehicles participating. On one hand are the rock crawlers that opened these trails in the early 80s. On the other, yet to enter production, Jeep's brand new Gladiator, here to be tested. The range of drivers in this event is even broader. Jeep has enlisted former King Eric Miller and racing legend Robbie Gordon to put this new vehicle through its paces. Then, there's Jimmy Lewis, a motorcycle legend who's won both the Baja 1000 and the Dakar Rally on 2 wheels.
So I got to go out driving with Dan Fresh, and he's an old motorcycle rider too, so we talked about a little bit about how the motorcycle stuff works and what's different. He showed me a couple secrets that I cannot reveal to anyone.
This is his first time racing a car, so he's partnered with an experienced co-driver.
Okay, I'll start first. So this is Matthew Fallis. He's better known around Hammertown as Texas Jesus. He made a couple mayoral bids around here. Kind of famous, actually. Like, everybody waves at him and stuff.
Stopping me for things.
Yeah, and he fixes like problems when people's cars breaks out in the rocks. So I thought he'd be a good co-dog.
He thinks I've like run all the Hammers trails and know where everything is, but little does he know that I know none of that.
They'll be driving a well-worn 4800 Legends car. The 4800s are referred to as the Legends because they're typically retired Ultra 4 Unlimited cars from the early days of the series. That certainly doesn't mean they're slow.
I don't know, it wasn't even a month ago, Jesus sent me a picture of the car. He says, I'm working on this car, and I said, wow, that looks like a real race car. So, yeah, it was kind of a shock, and so now we're, I mean, kind of expected to do something with it.
To enter the race, Jimmy and Texas will need to meet 4800 class regulations, DOT-approved tires.
Hey, Texas, how many times have we done shocks?
37 inches or less.
At least 10 times we've taken this stuff apart. We're so over it. We're not doing it again, even if it's worse than it ever was.
A single shock per corner.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Texas, Jesus, and Jimmy embody the Everyman Challenge.
Shocks.
It's who this race was made for.
But we found something today.
How you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Check this out. Oh yeah, look what showed up. We need some of these.
Not just that.
4 of them.
2.
You happy with it?
Happy enough.
Starting to look like a race car.
Well, when it's finished, it will fit. Did I hammer it too far? Nope, just right. Ooh, we have one very important last thing to do here real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Rare bird, last of the stickers.
The competition car is complete.
Come on, guys.
It's their turn to qualify.
No racing for you. Levi Shirley bringing back a car out of the dead, huh?
Yep.
And gonna do a race pre-run for Friday.
Ultra 4 Unlimited racer Levi Shirley has decided to try his hand at the EMC.
It's just like ours, only a little bit different, right?
Yeah, it's the same but different. Gotta stay professional.
Through that rock section.
One by one, qualifiers leave the line to determine their starting order in the race.
We're gonna go out there. I mean, I'd love to sit on the pole again. Leaving the line in the morning with no dust is huge in this race, so we want to get out front early and just maintain pace.
I can hear you just fine.
I can hear you now. Did you change your plug again? Or
no, I didn't do anything to it.
Right on.
We still have 4 tires on it?
I don't know.
With a respectable qualifying lap under their belt, Jimmy and Texas can rest easy. But some teams aren't so lucky. Bailey Cole, a strong contender, has blown his engine before he's had a chance to qualify for a start position.
So right now we're trying to scramble to get our EMC car ready to go again, our Legends Class car. Our motor blew up right before qualifying, so tomorrow we're gonna start at the back of the pack and work our way through the field. Hopefully still be competitive in the class. Me and all the great guys at Trent Fab, my co-driver Tom, Blaine, we all stayed up till 3 in the morning pulling out the motor. The new motor got here at 10 o'clock today, and now we're just working and throwing it in right now. It's gonna be a long one for all of us. Me and my team aren't into quitting, so we're gonna push as hard as we can to get to the finish of all 3 races.
Bailey's crew will be hard-pressed to get the car ready in time for the green flag. In Ultra 4, obstacles don't only exist out on the course. Preparing a vehicle to be race-ready is a challenge in itself. Building race cars and pushing them to their limits will inevitably result in a few engine swaps on the lake bed. But a tight-knit team can pull off feats that would be insurmountable otherwise. Although racing is a competition, the best drivers bring this lesson to the track and often rise to the top.
The core group of the people in the EMC, we've raced together for a while, so nobody wants to beat somebody because they're having a bad day, something failed on the car, and beating them while they're limping across the finish line, that's not a good victory. You want to be drag racing, hair on fire, crossing the line. That's a win.
After the break, the 2019 4-Wheel Parts Everyman Challenge. This episode of World of X Games is brought to you by 4-Wheel Parts, Yukon Gear and Axle, Branik Motorsports, and Spidertrax. We're in Hammertown, California, where the 4-Wheel Parts Everyman Challenge is about to commence. More than 130 racers will line up in pairs to take on the 160-mile course. They'll do so without the technological advantages of the 4400 Unlimited cars that will race later in the week. In order to beat the odds stacked against them, competitors must become comrades. Dan Fresh, last year's EMC overall winner, experienced this firsthand in a memorable duel with second-place finisher Casey Gilbert.
It was a great back-and-forth battle. We rolled up on him up Jack North. He hung up on a rock. We pulled him off. I got stuck at the top of Aftershock, and he was nice enough to come up and return the favor. Mike was trying to winch. We didn't have a big rock. We're dragging the rock to the car. He hits me in the back, knocks me loose, and then we took off racing again. And we were able to win by just a few minutes. It was a great battle, and what a nice guy, you know. He was a cool competitor.
Jimmy Jack, starting next to Dan today, had a similar experience in 2018 with fellow 4500 competitor Matt Howell.
He had an issue. I tried to go around him. Then I had an issue. Then he flipped, but then I was stuck. Basically, we needed each other. He needed me to winch to flip back over. I needed him to pull me back, and so I don't even know how long we were there, 45 minutes, an hour. And then we resumed racing, and I don't know, it was a mile or two down the road. I made a poor choice, took a bad line, and landed on my lid. Even though Matt's a competitor, he actually could have just drove right by, but he pulled off, spent probably another hour pulling me back over and got me back on my wheels, and then we resumed the race again.
EMC drivers are known for helping each other, but make no mistake,
I hate losing. and I'm just competitive, and I'm not gonna stop until my car just won't go.
It's race time. The moment drivers have worked all year for. First off the line is Casey Gilbert and Jason Bunch. Pairs will leave the line 30 seconds apart, with times adjusted for start position. Last year's Stock Class winner, Jesse Coombs. Texas Jesus and Jimmy Lewis. Ultra 4 Unlimited racer Levi Shirley. Eric Miller and Robbie Gordon leave the line in the Jeep Gladiator, less than a week old. Jimmy Jack backs up his claim by beating Dan off the line. This desert doesn't breed quitters, and Bailey Cole is proof. Because he couldn't qualify, he'll start 83rd, but he and his team worked into the early morning to replace his engine. He roars off the line on a mission to prove himself. Bailey may be starting more than 20 miles behind race leader Casey Gilbert, but the race is run on adjusted time. If he can close the gap, he has a shot at winning.
The first lap, we were finding ourselves, we were sliding through just snow-covered corners.
Casey is setting a blistering pace, and he quickly puts 4 miles between himself and third place. Still, he can't shake 4,400 pro Levi Shirley, who's able to make a pass after 50 miles of pursuit. Levi and Casey make their way through the rocks at Cougar Buttes, while physical 4th place and 4,500 class leader Dustin Friesen makes a mistake that results in an early rollover. Officials may help drivers if they're blocking the course. Otherwise, racers must help each other. Because of Dustin's error, 2nd place 4,500 driver Matt Howell makes gains, with a motivated Dan Fresh in 3rd. The race is tight between the leaders as they pass through Hammertown and the main pit after lap 1. To finish the course, they'll now have to cover 70 miles through the infamous rock canyons known as the Hammers. Meanwhile, Jimmy Jack has closed a 1-mile gap and exited the pits in front of Dan Fresh. Although the leaders can't see, Bailey Cole is closing in. By the time Bailey leaves the main pit, he trails Dan and Jimmy by less than 2 miles. After the break, the 4-wheel parts EMC enters the rocks. Welcome back to the rock section of the 2019 4-Wheel Parts Everyman Challenge. 160 miles of the toughest desert and rock trails in the world. The leaders are halfway through their 2nd and final lap. Meanwhile, Bailey Cole's 90-mile sprint through the desert loop has already validated the effort to replace his engine the night before. Jimmy Lewis and Texas Jesus are caught in a bottleneck, battling rising engine temperatures.
What am I pouring in here, Jimmy?
The water that I drank this morning. Okay, good. It's way down, way down. I think we're gonna go again. Get back in the car.
With their coolant topped off, the pair continues in high spirits. After leading for much of the day, Levi Shirley has lost all 4 gears of his transmission in Jack North. He opts to pull off and help other competitors winch through. Throughout the field, the battle wages on. For some, the results matter. For others, it's pure survival. Casey Gilbert has run away with the lead, finishing almost 30 minutes ahead of second place Brad Lovell. Bailey Cole has climbed over 80 positions, claiming the third place in the 4800 class. With the highest spec 4800 winners at the finish, Dan Fresh, Matt Howell, and Jimmy Jack lead the 4500 class in a charge to the checkered flag. Uncharacteristically, Howell is forced to beat an early retreat back to Hammertown. With a 9-mile lead and 30 miles remaining, Dan is in a good position to repeat last year's win in his class, but the desert has other plans. He's made it through outer limits, but exiting the bottom of Spooner's Canyon, he breaks a lower suspension link. The lead of the number 88 car is eroding. As Dan Fresh approaches the finish, having fought 160 miles of treacherous terrain, he and his co-driver can go no further under their own power. In the end, Jimmy Jack narrowly beats defending champion Dan Fresh in his first ever 4500 class win.
Wouldn't move. Jimmy Jack pushed us over.
Yeah. No, don't give it to Jimmy then.
Well, yeah, he should get it. He earned it. We tried.
As a 1985 Toyota battles Jeep's latest creation, the modified stock title is still up for grabs. It's the latest prototype in 4x4 innovation versus the simplicity of a tried and tested machine.
We're running a 4-cylinder engine against V8 Jeeps. We're running leaf springs. We're limited in class by the diameter of shock and length we can run. So there's a lot of limitations for this, but I've said this to Dave Cole, the promoter of this before, the longer and tougher this race is, the better I will do.
The King of the Hammer showcases the widest spectrum of off-road vehicles anywhere. Today, a 1985 Toyota held the top spot on the podium. Tomorrow, $500,000 T1s will devour the desert for that same honor. Despite the vast differences between these vehicles, their drivers share the same passion for off-road racing. More than any one race, it drives participants, support crews, and spectators to make the long pilgrimage to the Hammers. They journey from all over the world, and it's not the adrenaline of racing, but the community they find that keeps them coming back. Unlimited class vehicles are a sight to behold, but in many ways they require an unlimited budget, a reality that will keep them out of reach of the average off-roader. Thanks to the UTV and EMC races, almost anyone can compete in the King of the Hammers. Crossing the starting line takes preparation. Reaching the finish line means perseverance.
Great job.
All for a feeling, a sense of accomplishment. Few will experience it, but the ones that do will always return.
Hell yeah, dude, good job. Awesome. Long day.
Oh, that was great.
The first finish.
That was awesome. Hell yeah, buddy.
We're all here for the same common goal. We want to finish this race because it's the toughest race in the world.